The air in the studio crackled with anticipation, a familiar hum that Jon Stewart, the undisputed satire king of The Daily Show, knew better than the back of his hand. For years, he'd honed his craft, dissecting political hypocrisy with surgical. Would his signature smirk a prelude to another takedown? He was a titan, a media colossus, and tonight he had a new target in his sights, Karoline Leavitt. She was a fresh face, a mere 27 years old, thrust into the unforgiving spotlight as Donald Trump's spokesperson. Leavitt was known for her tough, unyielding style, a rapid-fire delivery that often left seasoned journalists blinking. But more infamously, she was tied to the signal leak, a gaffe that had become a persistent thorn in the side of the Trump administration. Stuart, ever the opportunist, saw not just a story, but a spectacle. "I want Karoline Leavitt on my show," he'd declared, his voice echoing across late-night airwaves. An unedited interview, just the truth. The invitation wasn't a gesture of goodwill. It was a carefully laid trap, a public challenge designed to expose what Stuart perceived as a young, inexperienced operative out of her depth. Leavitt, briefly considering the chance to set things straight, had immediately agreed, ready to face him. But before she even stepped foot in his studio, Stuart dove in, swinging. The spotlight caught his signature smirk as he strode onto The Daily Show stage, the crowd roaring with applause. He settled into his desk, tapping it lightly, his eyes gleaming like a predator primed for a takedown performance. "Welcome to tonight," Stuart began, his tone deceptively casual but loaded with intent. The audience chuckled, sensing the impending comedic assault. Stuart didn't keep them waiting. He leaned forward, his voice shifting to a mocking cadence. "Who's Leavitt? She's Trump's Gen Z puppet, the youngest spokesperson ever in the White House. But don't let her age fool you. She's sparked a scandal." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the laughter build. "The whole country's talking about the signal leak, a secret chat about plans to hit the Houthis. And someone, I'm not saying it was her, but okay, it was her, accidentally added Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic to it." The crowd erupted in a fresh wave of laughter, some whistling, as Stuart shook his head with fake exasperation. "She calls it fake news. I call it cosmic-level incompetence." He kept the assault going, relentless. "I thought she'd be good at covering tracks since that's her job, right? But no, she let the world know who Trump wants to hit before he could even tweet MAGA. Maybe she was too busy praying to check the group chat list." Stuart raised an eyebrow, mimicking a prayer gesture with dripping sarcasm, sending the audience into hysterics. "I'm not against faith, but if God said don't add Jeffrey, she must have heard invite the whole village instead." Then Stuart landed a heavier blow. He held up a large printed photo, a fabricated message he'd made up. "Karoline, I'll handle the press. Trump hit the Houthis. Now this is what I imagine she sent," he said, winking at the audience. "No one's confirmed it, but it looks so real, doesn't it? I bet she sent it, then sat there wondering why everything blew up." The crowd clapped, and Stuart shrugged. "I'm just helping her tell the story better since she clearly can't." But he wasn't done. Stuart stood, stepped around the desk, and stared into the camera as if speaking directly to Leavitt. "Karoline, you tweeted, 'You're not scared of me that you'd come here unedited.' Great. So come on, because I've got questions. How do you explain Signal being Trump's puppet, or do you just pray to get through me?" He laughed loudly, a booming sound that filled the studio. The crowd cheered and the studio buzzed hotter than ever. "You want unedited? I'll show the world how you fall." Right then, in his excitement, Stuart swung his arm too hard, shattering the coffee mug on his desk. Glass flew. A small cut appeared on his hand, and blood trickled lightly. "Oh, wow!" he exclaimed, holding up his hand with comic surprise. "Look at this. I'm bleeding for you, Karoline." The audience roared with laughter, and the moment instantly went viral online. The clip of Stuart breaking the mug and joking about Leavitt spread like wildfire within minutes. Stuart sat back down, wiping his hand with a napkin, a half-smile on his face. "I'm waiting, Karoline. You said you'd come. Don't let me tell this story alone, because I promise it won't be pretty." He winked, then moved on to the next segment, leaving the challenge hanging in the air. Social media exploded with Stuart vs Leavitt, his fans cheering, "He'll tear her apart," while conservatives fired back, "Leavitt will show him." Leavitt, watching the storm from her phone, opened X and typed a tweet. "Stuart, I'm in. I'll be on The Daily Show, unedited, no running. You want the truth? I'll bring it." She hit send, her heart pounding, but a small, determined smile crept onto her face. She'd chosen to step into this fight, and she'd do it her way. The tweet from Karoline Leavitt, a defiant digital gauntlet, landed like a punch in Jon Stewart's production room. He'd seen it, of course. His team, a well-oiled machine of research and comedic demolition, had flagged it the moment it went live. A satisfied smirk played on his lips. She was coming, just as he'd planned. "Find me everything on Leavitt," he ordered, his voice sharp, pointing at a whiteboard already covered in notes and diagrams of her public statements. Every statement, every scandal, especially Signal. "I want to know what she'll say before she opens her mouth." An assistant, perhaps new to the relentless pace of Stewart's pre-show prep, ventured, "Do you think she can handle it?" Stewart laughed, a short, dismissive bark. He stepped closer to the table, his eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and predatory focus. "She's 27, works for Trump, and thinks she can beat me on my turf. I'll teach her a lesson in truth my way." He grabbed a marker, circled Signal on the board with a flourish, and winked at the team. "I won't break a mug this time, but she doesn't stand a chance." The confidence radiating from him was palpable, a force field of comedic invincibility. Hours later, the studio glowed with bright lights, a buzzing hive of energy. The audience, packed to the rafters, clapped wildly as Jon Stewart walked out, his signature smirk plastered across his face. He waved, soaking in the adulation, then settled into the desk chair, his eyes glinting like a hunter smelling prey. Tonight was more than just another show. It was a public execution, or so he intended. "Welcome to tonight," Stuart began, his tone light, almost conversational, but edged with a palpable intent. The crowd quieted, leaning forward, ready for the main event. "We've got a special guest, Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, who tweeted, 'She's not afraid of me and would come here unedited, so let's bring her out.'" The crowd roared with a mixture of anticipation and partisan fervor. From the wings, Karoline Leavitt emerged. She moved with an unexpected confidence, poised in a sharp navy suit, her blonde hair neatly tied back. She offered a slight nod to the audience, a gesture of calm acknowledgement, before taking the seat directly across from Stuart. Their eyes locked, a silent challenge passing between them, a prelude to the verbal sparring that was about to begin. Stuart didn't waste a second. "Karoline," he said, his voice warm yet laced with a mocking undertone, "welcome to The Daily Show. I'm glad you kept your word, unedited, just like you wanted. But I've got to ask right off, how does it feel sitting here facing a 61-year-old? With a mic and some jokes after the country watched me turn your Signal mess into a comedy routine?" The audience erupted in hard laughter, a wave of sound designed to disarm and overwhelm. Leavitt, however, gave only a slight, almost imperceptible smile, her composure unwavering. "I'm here to tell the truth, Stuart," she replied, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the lingering laughter. "You can joke, but I'm not afraid of what you think of me." Stuart raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise, as if he'd just heard something utterly naive. "Oh, the truth. Great, Karoline, because I've got a lot of truth to ask you about," he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping slightly in mock seriousness. Let's start with Signal, that group chat where you accidentally leaked Trump's Houthi attack plans. Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic was in there, right? How do you explain a reporter getting into the White House's secret military chat? The crowd laughed again, and Stuart held up a hand like he was stopping them. No, wait. You called it fake news, but it's incompetence. So what's your truth here? Leavitt took a soft breath, her gaze steady, refusing to break eye contact. Stuart, I've said it. It was a misunderstanding blown up by media like you, she answered, her voice even. That chat wasn't my operation, and I didn't add anyone. I'm here to represent the president, not play spy games like you imagine. But Stuart wasn't about to let her off easy. He laughed loudly, slapping the desk. A misunderstanding, Karoline. You're the press secretary. Your job is to control the narrative, not give Jeffrey Goldberg a free backstage pass to the White House. The audience cracked up again, and Stuart winked at them, playing to the crowd. I bet she added Jeffrey thinking he'd write a Trump puff piece. Leavitt gripped her chair tighter, but her tone remained calm, her voice a quiet defiance against the rising tide of laughter. You can joke about it, but I'm not here to explain every text to you, she said. I work to serve the American people, not to entertain you. Stuart tilted his head, feigning surprise once more. Serve the American people? Then why are you Trump's Gen Z puppet? I mean, you're 27, Karoline. Do you really know what you're doing, or just reading what Trump tells you to? The crowd cheered, and Stuart pressed harder, sensing a potential weakness. I'm not saying you're not smart. You got this gig, but do you ever wonder if you're just a young face for Trump to show off? The question hit like a punch, and the audience buzzed, waiting for her reaction. Leavitt pursed her lips, a subtle tightening that betrayed the internal furnace now raging. Stuart's question, hitting like a punch, hung in the air. Do you ever wonder if you're just a young face for Trump to show off? The audience buzzed, a collective gasp of anticipation, waiting for the young spokesperson to falter, to crack, under the relentless pressure. But instead of wilting, Leavitt fired back, her voice suddenly sharp, cutting through the studio's humid air. I'm nobody's puppet, Stuart. I'm here because I believe in what we're doing. Stuart, ever the showman, smirked, not missing a beat. So, what do you believe when Trump tells you to cover up stuff like Signal? Or do you just pray to get through tough questions? He mimed praying again, hands clasped, sending the audience into another fit of laughter. I'm not against faith, Karoline, but if you're praying to lie better, God might be busy elsewhere. He stood, circling the desk, arms raised like a stage. Actor. Picture this, he said, his voice dramatic. Karoline in the White House, phone buzzing with Trump's text. Hit the Houthi now. And she replies, don't worry, I'll handle the press. Then boom, Jeffrey Goldberg pops up, and the world knows. He held up the fake printed message from the last show, a prop designed to humiliate. The audience howled. I don't know if she sent that, but it looks so real, right? Youngest press secretary ever, but it seems she's learning on the job by screwing it all up. Leavitt tried to cut in, her patience wearing thin. You're making up a story that's not real, Stuart. But he interrupted her instantly, his voice rising, confident in his dominance. Not real, Karoline. I don't need to make it up. You did it. You leaked Signal. You work for Trump. And now you're here thinking I'll go easy because you're young. Nope. He turned to the audience, a triumphant grin on his face. She wanted unedited, and I'm giving her exactly that. The truth. No mercy. The crowd clapped loudly, a thunderous endorsement of Stuart's performance. He sat back, tapping the desk, his eyes daring her to respond. Leavitt sat there, eyes locked on Stuart, hands resting lightly on her chair. She knew his game. He was trying to humiliate her, to make her a laughingstock for millions. The audience was still laughing, clapping, and the studio felt like a Roman arena where Stuart was the unbeatable gladiator. I'm not here to be your clown, she said quietly, but firm enough for the mic to catch, her voice cutting through the din. Stuart laughed big, a booming sound that filled the room. Good, because I'm not here to make you happy either. The studio buzzed with applause and laughter. Jon Stewart, riding high on confidence after relentlessly hammering Karoline Leavitt through the first half of the interview, sat back down, that smirk still plastered on his face. He'd unloaded on Signal, her faith, and her loyalty to Trump. "Karoline, I've got to hand it to you. It's brave coming here," Stuart said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But you haven't answered anything beyond, 'I'm not a puppet, and I tell the truth.' So what's your truth? What do you have besides prayers and that disastrous Signal chat?" The crowd laughed hard again, and Stuart raised his hands like he was waiting for an answer he knew she couldn't give. Leavitt sat there, eyes fixed on Stuart, hands resting lightly on her chair. She took a deep breath, and for the first time in the interview, a small, almost imperceptible smile appeared on her lips. "Stuart," she began, her voice calm but sharp, a sudden steel beneath the composure. "You want the truth? You say you're here to expose me, but I think it's time I expose you." The audience went quiet for a moment, stunned by the sudden, unexpected shift in her tone. Stuart raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening, confident she had nothing. "Oh, you're going to expose me. Go for it, Karoline. I'm waiting." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with a newfound fire. "You love mocking me about Signal, about being Trump's puppet. But have you ever looked at yourself?" she said, her tone steady yet defiant. "You call yourself a truth-teller, but what did you say about free speech when it suited you?" Leavitt gestured to her team offstage, and the big screen behind them lit up, not with a Trump tweet, but with an old Daily Show clip. In it, a younger Jon Stewart praised the previous administration's social media censorship policies, saying, "Sometimes we need limits to protect democracy." The audience murmured, a ripple of unease spreading through the studio. Stuart frowned, clearly caught off guard, his smirk finally faltering. "That's you, Stuart," Leavitt said, pointing at the screen as the clip ended. "You backed limits on free speech when it went against what you didn't like. But now you blast Trump and me for the same thing. Who's the propagandist here?" The crowd stayed silent for a beat. Then scattered applause broke out from the back, a hesitant but growing recognition of her audacious move. Stuart tried to recover, forcing a laugh, a strained sound that didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's old news, Karoline. I've evolved. You can't use that against me, kid." But Leavitt, now fully in control of the narrative, cut him off. Her voice, though calm, was laced with an undeniable authority. "Your past shows you're not as neutral as you claim. You're only neutral when it's convenient. I don't pretend like you do." Stuart opened his mouth to retort, but Leavitt didn't. "Give him a chance." She stood, stepped past her chair and faced the audience directly, a bold move that seized the entire studio's attention. "He wants to humiliate me, make me a joke because I'm young, because I work for Trump, because I pray," she said, her voice echoing through the studio, no longer just a spokesperson, but a defiant voice. "But I've got a question for you, Stuart, and all of you." She turned, pointing at him, her gaze unwavering. "Do you dare criticize the people funding this show? The big corporations, the billionaires you avoid mentioning? Or are you just good at attacking a 27-year-old because she's an easy target?" The audience froze. Then a sudden wave of loud applause erupted from the back, spreading forward like wildfire, a clear sign that Leavitt had struck a nerve. Stuart faltered for the first time in the interview, losing his cool, his comedic shield cracking. "Did you learn that from Trump?" he joked, trying desperately to regain control. "I mean, attacking the interviewer, that's straight out of his playbook, right?" But Leavitt didn't smile. She stepped closer, her eyes unwavering. "No, Stuart, this isn't Trump's trick. This is the truth you're afraid to face. You mock my faith, but at least I'm not pretending like you, a propagandist dressed up as a comedian. I'm not here to be your clown, and I won't let you turn me into a puppet in your story." The studio erupted in applause, this time not for Stuart, but for Leavitt. Stuart raised his hands, trying to calm the mood, a forced smile on his face. All right. You scored a point there, Karoline, but don't think you're off the hook that easily. I've still got questions." However, his voice lacked its earlier certainty, and the audience could see he was trying to mask his discomfort. Leavitt sat back down, smiling faintly, a quiet triumph in her eyes. "Ask away, Stuart," she said, her tone calm, but this time it was a challenge for something real, not cheap jokes. Stuart tilted his head, attempting to regain his footing. "You're good. I'll give you that," he said, tapping the desk, a grudging acknowledgement. "But you still haven't explained Signal. You can't keep deflecting with old clips of me forever." Leavitt shot back instantly, her composure absolute. "I'm not deflecting. Signal was a mistake. I've said that, but it doesn't define me. You define yourself by attacking others, but when you're called out, you dodge. That's the difference. Between us." The audience clapped again, and this time the applause was louder, longer, a clear shift in allegiance. Stuart forced a laugh, raising his hands like a temporary surrender. "You played tough, Karoline," he said, his voice tinged with reluctant admiration. "I invited you here for unedited, and you're giving me a real fight." He turned to the audience, a wry grin attempting to regain some ground. "See this? She's no puppet. At least not tonight." The crowd laughed, but this time the laughter wasn't entirely in Stuart's favor. Leavitt had done the unthinkable. She didn't just survive. She turned the tables. She leaned towards Stuart, her voice low, but clear enough for the mic to catch. "You want the truth, Stuart? Here's the truth. I'm not afraid of you, and I'm not here for you to humiliate. I'm here to show the country you're not the only one who gets to tell the story." Stuart looked at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, then laughed loudly, a sound that seemed to acknowledge a new reality. "Kid, you just turned my show into yours." The audience stood, clapping, and the studio shook with unprecedented energy. Stuart sank back into his chair, forcing a strange smile to hide his unease, while Leavitt held her steady gaze, hands resting lightly on her chair like a fighter who just won. The interview wasn't even over, but a short clip where Leavitt played Stuart's old video and challenged him to question himself was posted to social media by the Daily Show team right after airing. Within minutes, the internet exploded like a bomb. Leavitt Stuart shot to the top of X's trending list. The first reactions came from conservatives who'd been waiting for a moment like this. "Karoline Leavitt just knocked out Jon Stewart," a prominent account tweeted, attaching the clip of Leavitt saying, "Who's the propagandist here?" The tweet racked up thousands of likes and retweets fast. Another wrote, "She's 27 and silenced. Stewart, a 61-year-old. This is Gen Z's comeback queen." Trump supporters across X began calling her the young conservative hero, sharing memes of Leavitt at a mic with captions like, "When you walk into the tiger's den and make the tiger run." Another viral meme spread, Stuart looking flustered with the text, "When the Gen Z kid schools the old man." But it wasn't just conservatives celebrating. Even some neutral viewers were impressed by Leavitt's wit and guts. "I don't like Trump, but Karoline just did the impossible," an ex-user commented. "She used Stuart's own words to smack him. That's a top-tier counterpunch." Another posted, "Stuart thought he'd humiliate her, but now he's the clown. Leavitt won, Stuart 0. The video of Leavitt daring Stuart to criticize the show's funders was shared tens of thousands of times with comments like, "She just made The Daily Show her stage." Stuart's fans, usually used to him dominating these clashes, were thrown into chaos. Some tried to defend him. Stuart was just caught off guard. He's still the satire king, but others couldn't deny his loss. "I love Stuart, but he got taken down. Leavitt was too sharp. He didn't see it coming." Some criticized him harder. "He went too far mocking her faith and now he's paying for it." Embarrassing. One account even posted a meme of Stuart breaking his coffee mug from the earlier episode, captioned, "When you think you'll win but get wrecked on your own turf." Meanwhile, news outlets and influencers jumped in fast. Breitbart ran a headline, "Karoline Leavitt teaches Jon Stewart a lesson in truth," hailing her as the future of the conservative movement. In contrast, some liberal sites like Vox wrote, "Leavitt may have scored, but she's still Trump's mouthpiece. Don't be fooled by this stunt." Still, even critics had to admit her skill. A YouTube commenter wrote, "I don't support her, but that flip was undeniable." Stuart met his match on X. Should Leavitt knockout, Stewart started popping up, rivaling Leavitt v. Stewart. A fan-edited short video pairing Leavitt's old Stewart clip drop with sweet victory music hit hundreds of thousands of views in hours. One user posted, "She didn't just survive, she made Stewart the joke. This is the drama of the year." Another meme spread wide, Leavitt with the quote, "I'm not here to be your clown," next to a flustered Stewart captioned, "When you invite the wrong guest on air." Conservatives kept fueling the hype. A big account tweeted, "Karoline Leavitt proves youth and faith can beat the liberal media. Trump should be proud." Another added, "She just showed Stuart who really holds the mic." MAGA groups dubbed her Killer Karoline, and some even suggested she run for office later. "She's 27 and took down Stuart. Imagine what she'll do at 40. A tweet with thousands of likes read. Meanwhile, Stewart's team tried damage control. The Daily Show's official X account posted a short interview clip captioned, "Karoline Leavitt brought a fight, but don't worry, Stewart's not done." But the comments below were a mixed storm. "Stewart got owned. Don't try to spin it," one wrote. "She made the show hers. Respect," another added. Some loyal Stewart fans still defended, "He'll come back stronger." This was just a slip, but clearly Leavitt's counterstrike left an indelible mark. The social media storm after Karoline Leavitt's shocking comeback on The Daily Show didn't die down overnight. As the full interview aired, the nation kept buzzing about how she turned Jon Stewart's humiliation attempt into a resounding win. And Leavitt Stewart and Leavitt knockout Stewart dominated X for days, with millions rewatching the clip of Leavitt dropping Stewart's old video and daring him to face himself. But what came next wasn't just fleeting drama. It marked a major turning point for both Leavitt and Stewart, leaving lasting ripples in the political and media landscape. In the White House, Leavitt became a focal point in a way no one expected. Hours after the interview, Donald Trump, never one to miss a bragging chance, tweeted from his account, "Karoline Leavitt just showed Jon Stewart and the fake news media the truth. Fantastic. She's the best spokesperson." Trump's public praise wasn't just a pat on the back. It signaled Leavitt had solidified her spot in his administration. Close advisors like Stephen Miller and Kayleigh McEnany, who'd urged her to steer clear of Stewart, now had to admit she pulled off a stunner. She didn't just survive, she beat him, an insider told Breitbart. Trump loves that. Leavitt's standing wasn't just bolstered in the White House, but also among the conservative public. MAGA groups and influencers like Charlie Kirk began calling her the rising Gen Z conservative star. A Newsmax piece praised, "At 27, Karoline Leavitt did what many veteran politicians wouldn't dare, face down and defeat a liberal media giant." Small X polls showed her gaining huge support from conservatives, with many suggesting she run for office later. She took down Stewart. "Imagine her in the Senate," one user wrote, getting thousands of likes. Leavitt's tough Gen Z spokesperson image started taking shape, turning her from a background figure in Trump's administration into a new icon. But not everyone saw Leavitt's win as positive. Liberals and some die-hard Stewart fans viewed it as a staged play to appease Trump. "She's just a talking puppet," a Daily Beast article argued. "Using Stewart's old clip doesn't prove she's good. It shows she's well-trained." Still, even detractors couldn't deny she'd changed the game. An MSNBC commentator admitted, "She's smarter than we thought. Stewart underestimated her and now she's got momentum. The right will milk it dry." Meanwhile, Stewart faced a reputation jolt he hadn't seen in years. On the next Daily Show episode, he came out in his usual style, trying to bounce back by poking fun at himself. "So, I invited Karoline Leavitt on. And she turned me into the sidekick on my own show, he joked, raising his hands in mock surrender. The studio audience laughed hard, but online reactions were mixed. "Stuart's still a legend, but he lost this one," a fan tweeted. Another was harsher. "He went too far with Leavitt and she made him look like a bully." Some loyal fans defended, "He'll come back, it's just a minor loss." But clearly, Stuart's unbeatable shine took a rare hit. Stuart didn't lose his draw entirely. He still had a devoted audience and a reputation for challenging power, but the Leavitt clash left a crack in his image. Media critics started dissecting it. Stuart's always been great at facing dodgers, but when he met someone like Leavitt who hits back, he faltered, a piece in The Atlantic noted. Some pointed out his mocking of Leavitt's faith backfired, making him seem like a personal attacker. Rather than a sharp commentator, he underestimated her youth, one journalist wrote, and now he's paying with credibility. Leavitt, with her Stuart victory, became a symbol for conservatives in the fight against the left-leaning media. Her subsequent White House press briefings drew bigger attention than ever, with reporters probing more on Signal and Trump, but she handled them with newfound confidence. "I faced Stuart. Your questions don't scare me," she said at one briefing with a slight smile that silenced the room. That confidence wasn't just talk. It stemmed from proving herself on the biggest stage. Meanwhile, the Signal scandal, once Stuart's main weapon, began fading from public heat. Leavitt used her win to redirect the narrative, stressing she was a spokesperson for the people, not the incompetent figure Stuart painted. "I'm not there to play spy games, I'm there to serve," she said in a Fox News interview, reinforcing her image. Trump's congressional allies also started mentioning her as a standout young talent, with some hinting she could take on bigger roles down the line. As the showdown between Karoline Leavitt and Jon Stewart on The Daily Show settled, its echoes still reverberated across social media, White House press rooms, and coffee shop chats nationwide. Leavitt, once a target Stewart aimed to humiliate, emerged as an unexpected warrior, strengthening her place in Trump's administration and the conservative movement. Stewart, still a satire titan, faced a rare scratch on his reputation. But this story wasn't just about who won or lost. It offered deep lessons on power, accountability, and how two generations clashed in a turbulent media age. For Leavitt, this victory proved she wasn't just the TikTok spokesperson or Gen Z puppet Stewart had mocked. At 27, she showed that youth isn't a weakness, but can be a strength when paired with intelligence and courage. Her shocking counterpunch, using Stewart's own past words to flip the script, wasn't just a clever tactic. It was a declaration that she wouldn't let others define her. "I'm not here to be your clown," she said in the interview, and that line became an unofficial rallying cry for her supporters. It reflected a bigger truth. Leavitt represented a new generation of conservatives ready to confront media giants head-on instead of dodging or enduring them. In the White House, Leavitt's win wasn't just a personal moment. It signaled that her tough style could shape how the Trump administration communicates with the public moving forward. Trump, with his public praise, placed her front and center, and her subsequent press briefings showed a new confidence. "I faced Stuart. I'm not afraid of anything," she said in one appearance, her gaze as steady as it was opposite Stuart. She didn't just solidify her position, she raised the bar for conservative spokespeople, proving they could win battles they'd typically avoided before. The story, Jon Stewart, tries to humiliate Karoline Leavitt, and she responds with a shocking comeback. Mirrors a very real aspect of American life today, the deep polarization between generations, political ideologies, and media. In the tale, Stewart stood for a seasoned generation, wielding satire to attack Leavitt over the Signal leak and her loyalty to Trump, while Leavitt, a 27-year-old woman, not only withstood it, but struck back by exposing Stewart's past contradictions. With an old video The event, from the showdown on The Daily Show to the social media storm with Leavitt Stewart, showed how media power and personal reputation can shift fast in America's digital age, where everyone has a voice on X or TikTok. Leavitt cemented herself as a young conservative icon, while Stuart faced a scratch on his unbeatable image, reflecting the reality that no one is invincible in this polarized society. The lesson here applies straight to real life in the US today. Don't underestimate an opponent based on age or appearance, and always be ready for pushback. Leavitt won not just with smarts, like when she challenged Stuart about his show's funders, but with resilience under pressure, something Americans can take into work or personal debates. In a country where social media can make you a hero or a loser in hours, as seen with Leavitt knockout Stuart trending, always have your own ammo, like Leavitt's video counter. And don't let others define your story. Stand up like Leavitt, whether young or old, conservative or liberal, because in today's America, power belongs to those who take accountability and fight for their voice. Thanks for tuning in to the epic drama between Karoline Leavitt and Jon Stewart. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a media clash that shook the nation, please like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on who truly won this battle. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next thrilling media battles. See you in the upcoming video, where we'll keep exploring the stories that define our times.